Welcome to Kumba Software DPAA tutorials. This tutorial is about copying and moving object configurations within your DataPower appliances. So be sure to set your video playback to high definition, and though some visual details of DPAA may have changed since this video was created, the functionality will be the same. So to get started, I have a couple of I have DPA running. I have a couple of appliances selected, and I've created a couple of test domains. And to show that we're not pulling any trickery here, I've selected the two domains that we're going to be playing around with. I've selected a load balancer group type, and I'm just going to search this set of domains on these appliances to prove that we don't have any load balancer groups currently existing in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go select these two domains, and we're going to again list the load balancer group types within here. And you can see that there's going to be a whole bunch of load balancer groups in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce that list to just a few so that we have a subset to work with. So I'm going to put in a regular expression to search by name. There's another video on how to find objects, but this will kind of let us see what we're trying to accomplish here. I'm going to kind of go all out in some cases here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this service from this domain of this appliance, and I'm going to select this load balancer group from this appliance and this domain, just to prove that we can copy or move different objects from different places to even more different places. Now, it wouldn't have made sense for me to select these two objects to move or copy, because it would be basically copying the same thing, assuming, of course, that these two objects are identically configured. But if I copy them both as the source to whatever destination, it would more than likely copy the same object twice, and the last one to get copied would prevail in the final configuration. So it generally doesn't make sense to copy from the same object type with the same object name from the same domain of two different appliances to some destination. But in this particular case, I'm copying different objects. So to invoke the copy, now that I've made the selection, I can drop this down and select copy to from the hamburger menu. And what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a dialog that allows me to select the destination appliances. So I'm going to go ahead and decide I'm going to copy these two objects to both appliances. I'm going to select next. And then this checkbox allows me to say, do I want to duplicate the source domains to the target appliances? In other words, I'm copying from the insurance domain and the government domains. Do I want to copy to the insurance and government domains? Now, this would make sense if I'm copying this object to that object. In other words, I'm copying it to the same domain in the other appliances wherever I'm going. But that's not what I'm attempting to do here. And so as a result, I'm not going to select this checkbox. I'm going to go ahead and select next. And what I want to do is I want to copy to this domain. I'm going to copy to domain 1 from these two locations to that location. Then I'm going to select next. Now we also have the option of including object references and including referenced files. Now if we were copying something very big like a multi-protocol gateway or an XML firewall, it might definitely make sense to check both of these boxes. But for the load balancer group, I'm just going to include the object references. I happen to know there are no files referenced by the load balancer group, or at least not those such as the store health check. I don't need to copy that because it's going to exist in both domains anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and select next. And then what I have is I have a window that's going to summarize what I'm doing. And just to explain what it is, the first 4 columns of this table describe the source. So the source is dev1, the source domain is the insurance domain, the type of object I'm copying is a load balancer group, the name of the load balancer group I'm copying is the Charlie service load balancer group. And then the next 2 columns are the destination to which I'm copying it. So in this particular case, I'm copying it to the dev1 appliance and the domain 1 domain there. And then I'm copying it also to the dev2 appliance to the domain 1. And likewise, In the next set, we're copying the Lima service load balancer group from the dev2 government domain to both appliances and domain 1. So the whole idea here is that we're copying it to two appliances and the same domain, but two different appliances. That's why it seems duplicated. It's not duplicating effort. It's just copying it to two different appliances to the same name domain. So now I'm going to go ahead and click Finish. And DPAA is going to go about its work copying these objects. Now first, what it's going to do is it's just an automated process, right? It's going to do what you would do if you were doing it manually. You would export the configuration and then you would go in the process of importing that object definition into the other locations. But because we're copying from multiple appliances and multiple domains, different objects to different appliances and to different domains, quite a bit is happening automatically for you. So it's not that much work that you have to do. Just a couple of clicks of the mouse and you're finished. So you can see that the domain 1 now is been changed, and we're going to now go to domain 1, and I can clear this out and I can just search what I have here. And you can see that in domain 1 I have both of these load balancer groups that have been copied. Even though their destinations and sources were different, they're now both located into here. I can save this configuration and click that button above the domains list to save the configuration back, and that way the configuration is now saved. So when I search this at this point, you'll see that these are actually there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move configurations, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab these two configurations from dev2 and I'm going to move them to the domain 2 domain of both appliances. Now again, I wouldn't want to move in both cases. I wouldn't want to move this and this or whatever to different locations, because again, it's like copy. We won't want to move something that's going to be identical. It would work, but it would be a little bit messy. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create this one. I'm going to just copy from a single source appliance to a single destination appliance. Combination of destination appliances. Now I'm going to right mouse click instead of use the hamburger menu. It doesn't really matter which one you use. I'm going to select Move To. And the same things apply. What is my destination? This is very similar to copy, and the only difference is the source objects will no longer be there when the process is complete. So I'm going to select the two appliances that I want to move it to, and then I'm going to not duplicate the domains. Otherwise, it would want to move it back to the same domains in the same appliance, which we don't want to do. So then I'm going to select domain 2, and I'm going to select Next. And then again, do we want to move the object references? I would say we probably do, and if this were a complex object in a move operation, we'd probably want to include reference files as well, but because the load balancer group doesn't really have any interesting files to reference, we're going to just go Next. And then again, we have our definition of what we're going to move. So we're going to move the objects from here to there, and when it's done, they will no longer exist. Now, something happens in this processing that looks a little strange, but it's going to work. At some point, you're going to see some kind of error message that says, hey, wait a minute, I couldn't find this configuration, but that's only because it's trying to export it more than once, which it doesn't need to do, but it's going to go through there because it's already moved it, and that's what you're seeing go on here is it's already made that move, and it's not going to find it the second time it tries to move it, which is a good thing because we're moving multiple objects. And then now what I'm going to do is you can see the domain 1 has changed, and that's because we're in dev2, we've removed these. So if I search again, what you're going to see is you're only going to see that they've been removed from dev2. They still exist unchanged in dev1 because these are the objects we moved. And then if I go to domain 2, we can see that we have those objects that have been moved into here, but only from dev1. So that's where it gets a little bit, dev2, is that's the only thing we can see different there, is that we originally moved them from dev2, but we moved both of them to all of these locations. So you can see it can get very complicated in what you're moving and what you select and when you select it to how things are going to move in those different areas. Now, if you wanted to also delete these, we could just mark them and move them for deleted. We don't want to move them again. To save those configurations, you just simply select the domains, save the configurations back, and you can see that we saved the configurations in the different locations where we saved them. Now note that it seems a little odd. Why didn't I get 4? Well, we only deleted objects in the dev2 appliance as we moved them from the domain 1 domain to the domain 2 domain. And so we should expect to see this saved configuration. And now when I look at this list, we're not going to see everything in the dev2 like we did before, because they're in domain 2. We're not going to see the domain 1 version of these objects. Well, that's all we have for now. If you need to see more tutorials and more videos, go out to www.kumbasoft.com, go to the Features and Tutorials page there, and you'll see all the videos that you can see and all the tutorials that we have for you to view for this product. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.